Hi, I'm David Baez, your host for True Leadership, a show about impact-driven people and initiatives at Mississippi State University. Today we'll be joined by Dr. Joe Wilmoth, a professor in the School of Human Sciences here at Mississippi State. But first, we're going to have a conversation with my colleague, Dr. Pamela Scott-Bracey. Dr. Bracey, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So you recently wrote a piece for The Conversation that got some national exposure, national attention, and it was addressing some of the challenges that we may all be facing related to working from home, working at a distance. Talk to us a little bit about that. Give us kind of an overview of the piece before we...
Oh, well, yes. Well, the article is about tips for living online, as many of us currently are, and being able to survive this pandemic. And so I tried to write it from a practical perspective to try to give parents, employees, and students some everyday advice that could help them get through this tough time.
So we certainly are all feeling that push and that pressure now. Tell us from your experience during this time, both professionally and personally. I know you've got the academic training and background to be able to speak to this, but you've also been living it. So kind of those experiences coming together, tell us what are your key tips to help students, colleagues, professionals, folks around that may be listening to this show today?
Well, from many different angles, the main thing I would love to say is to show yourself grace and show others around you grace as well. We all have different circumstances right now, and so it's just important that we show each other a little grace and always maintain ourselves in a way that we can still be who we are, but still survive this pandemic together, even though we can't be close together. But we still need to lean on each other in order to make it through these times.
That's a great point, and I think your point about showing ourselves grace first, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to show ourselves grace. So start with yourself and then look outward. You can show yourself grace first and then show it to others.
Definitely.
That's important. I think most people would agree there are both pros and cons to working from home. I know that my wife and I have experienced that. There's some silver linings there, and then there's also some real challenges. Tell us about the importance of creating structure and routine, and your suggestions for setting schedules and planning for breaks during this time.
Yes, it's very important. When you're at home, home can usually be a very casual, relaxed place for people. But right now, that's also your place for professionalism. So having a schedule, whether you have to post that schedule on the wall next to your workspace, is extremely important. Something else that's important is setting timers, alarms. For an example, I have a child at home attending school virtually. And so we have to set alarms 5 minutes before it's time for each one of his Microsoft Teams meetings so that we can remember to get there on time, because with so many different things going on, it's easy to forget. So structure is important. Having a set and designated workspace is important with limited distractions. But just making sure that you're still up to par and knowing when to do what, that's important as well.
All right, so you mentioned the space, the workspace. Talk to us a little bit about that. What's the ideal workspace like? Talk to us about ergonomics, kind of what do we need to make the space work?
Well, it varies based upon what you have the opportunity to do. I'm blessed that I was able to redo a room and create an actual classroom. So my kids have a classroom at home and I have my own separate office. I know that everyone's not able to do that right now. And so even if you can just have a table in a designated spot, and if not even a section of your kitchen table, but whatever it is, if you're able to have it in a place with a background that's not busy, that's not distracting, where people won't be so distracted by the television and things of that nature, and you can still have your necessary supplies around you. That's very important. And it also provides some form of consistency. Something else that's important is the lighting in that area. Your environment impacts your mood. And so you want to make sure that you have the proper lighting. If you don't, you may want to change light bulbs. If that's not an option, you can get a lamp or a ring light. And all of those can help you. Ergonomically, it's always best if your space can allow you to be able to look directly into the camera and not have to strain to look up. You also don't want to have to look down, and then you have people looking up your nose. Something else that people tend to forget is the proper seating. You know, if your feet are not flat on the ground, or if your wrists are not level, you can also get carpal tunnel syndrome. Okay, so there are many different factors that you need to think about when you're planning your space, not just lighting, but also the seating, the arrangement, and how you have things positioned. All of that's important.
And I would imagine you went into some of that, or at least provided links to some of that. I know from when I read it, I enjoyed some of the links that you had included in the article. So I'd encourage our listeners, our viewers today to go check out your article, which we'll be sure to share information about. One more question, we hadn't got but just a second, but one more question would be about flexibility and schedule. And if you could just in the last 5-10 seconds, tell us about how we can be flexible.
Sure. Being flexible is prioritizing, making sure that you know what's a priority and things that you have to do, things that are mandatory, and things that would simply be nice to do that may not be mandatory, because time is everything right now, but you have to allocate personal time, also allocate time to your family, and we can't allow work to consume everything just because we're at home all of the time. So we have to make sure that we prioritize things that are necessary, and remember to give ourselves grace, take breaks, go for a walk, drink water so you won't be dehydrated, and just make sure that we're eating healthy snacks along the way and not forgetting to eat meals, because that can happen too.
It does happen. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for taking time to watch today. Up next, we'll have Dr. Joe Wilmoth joining us. After this message, we'll be right back.
Meeting the challenges of a changing world. It's a responsibility we take seriously at Mississippi State University. Today, our outstanding faculty are on the job with a passion that places them among the best in the business. We're launching new classroom models, investing in world-changing research, and providing a college experience that's second to none. Though things may look different, our sights have never been higher.
Hi, I'm David Byes, back with you in our second segment. Today's episode of True Leadership. I'm joined this time by Dr. Joe Wilmoth, professor in the School of Human Sciences here at Mississippi State University. Joe, thanks for being with us.
Hey, David, it's good to see you.
It's always good to have a conversation with you. So you wrote a piece for us addressing the challenges that older adults are facing in the time of COVID-19. Talk with us about first, what constitutes an older adult when we say that?
Most people officially call 65 as the point of beginning to be older. Some places 60, in fact some places 55. And I think it's important just to really recognize the reality that not every old person is alike. Some people are very physically fit, cognitively very active. So it's what may be a chronological age may not necessarily be a functional age for a lot of people.
It's good to remember. Good advice for us. So you mentioned in your recent article on COVID-19 and aging about staying at home and how that can be especially important for those with underlying medical conditions. So what do you recommend for family members to do to aid those older adults in terms of feeling isolated? How can we prevent that isolation, that loneliness? Those are problematic feelings.
Yeah, they really are. And isolation is really important for older people. It has all kinds of health implications as well as just emotional well-being. We can talk about all kinds of things, just doing virtual visits, phone calls, even text, cards, which people don't seem to do much anymore, but can be especially meaningful for older people, I think. My mother-in-law happened to have been in a nursing home this summer after falling and breaking her femur. So we went to where she was and we visited with her through the window of her nursing home. And so there are a variety of things, but the important thing is to maintain that connection. I was thinking just before we started, I don't like the term social distancing. I like physical distancing. You can still be socially connected without being right next to each other.
I've been saying a lot lately, we can be physically distanced but not socially disconnected. And you're exactly right. We need to stay stay connected. Okay, so we hear so much about the negative aspects of COVID-19 and older adults and how this has impacted them, but let's talk about some of the resiliency aspects of aging and the fact that older adults really are not all, as you said, they're not all alike.
Yeah. And I have to do this with a personal bias because I'm one of those older people. But there are several kind of inherent strengths that are true of older adults in general. And again, I think it's necessary to acknowledge that not every older adult has the same characteristics. But some research has discovered that as people get older, they tend to have more of a positivity bias.
Right.
They tend to notice more of the positive things, and the negative things of their past don't tend to be quite so impactful for them. Again, that's not true of everybody, but on average that happens. Another thing is the fact that older people do have a lifetime of experience and often have been through some really rough times. And so there's kind of this idea, I've been there, done that. Maybe not exactly this, but I've been through difficult times and survived. And so we can handle this. One other thing that's important to me is older people tend to be more religious. And religiosity is linked in lots of ways to well-being, and people of all ages, but especially older people who tend to be more religious than the general population.
Right. So there's that connection with religiosity to something outside of yourself, but there's also religiosity and a faithful religious practice gives you that connection and that repeated exposure to the same people. It helps build that community.
Right.
And we know that social connection is so critical. It's back to that conversation about physically distanced but not socially disconnected.
Yeah, exactly. Being part of a religious community gives that opportunity for those connections. I talked to someone earlier today who talked about their church had some kind of effort to take some things to nursing home residents to make them feel like they weren't forgotten and so forth. And so being part of that kind of religious community can be a big help as well.
All right, so for folks who are looking to help older adults out, as we talked about some of the things that they can do, but talk about some of the benefits to things like volunteerism and things, giving back. We know that that's important as well.
Yeah, volunteerism has been linked to all kinds of positive kinds of things, less depression, better physical health, and relationships in general. And so there's just that feeling of feeling good about doing something for someone else. That's a real benefit, as well as the residual kinds of benefits that go along with that.
It goes back as well to building that relationship with other people and making that connection. You give to somebody else and you're helping build that community.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that one-on-one kind of relationship and connection, as well as just that sense of being part of a larger community as well.
It's been a great discussion, Joe.
Always enjoy visiting with you.
Always fun to talk. Thank you all for being with us today for True Leadership.